Ever tried to set up a server rack, only to discover that the whole point of the monitor you bought was to keep an eye on temperature and door status, and then you find the alerts are either constantly false or never show up? I've heard that story more times than I can count, and it usually ends with a pricey piece of equipment sitting idle while the real problem, overheating or an open rack door, goes unnoticed. That's why I'm taking a step back before I push any recommendation for the APC Netbotz NBRK0750 Advanced Rack Security and Environmental Monitor. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm going to walk you through what makes this monitor work, where it might fall short, and who should actually consider it for their data center or home lab. First off, let's talk about the environment that this device is built for. The Netbotz line is aimed at small to mid-size IT setups that need more than just a simple temperature sensor. The NBRK0750 is a rack-mountable unit that plugs into a standard 19-inch rack and provides temperature, humidity, and door open-close detection, plus a handful of alarm outputs. What you're really buying is a way to get real-time alerts to your phone or email the moment something goes outside your set thresholds. If you've ever been stuck in a server room with a cooling unit that silently fails, you know why that matters. The upside is that the unit talks to APC's own cloud management platform, so you can see the data from anywhere without having to set up a dedicated monitoring server. Now, the first question most buyers ask is, do I really need this level of monitoring? Or can I just use a cheap USB thermometer and a simple door sensor? The answer depends heavily on your risk tolerance. In a small home lab with a single rack, a basic thermometer might be enough, especially if you already have a UPS that can shut down equipment in an overtemperature situation. But in a multi-rack environment, or if you're hosting critical services for clients, the cost of downtime quickly dwarfs the price of a dedicated monitor. The Netbotz unit gives you a single pane of glass for multiple environmental variables, and that consolidation is where the value really shows up. Instead of wiring 3 separate sensors to a network switch, you have a single device that reports everything. Installation is straightforward if you've done any rack work before. The monitor snaps into a standard 1U space, powers up via the included AC adapter, and you connect the sensor probes to the rear panel. The temperature sensor is a fairly standard thermistor that you can place on the side of a server or in the front of the rack. Humidity sensors, while not always essential for a well-conditioned server room, can be handy in older facilities where the HVAC system isn't as tight. The door sensor simply latches onto the door latch, and the whole thing starts reporting within minutes. I've seen people complain that the initial setup takes a lot of time, but in practice you can have it up and running in under half an hour if you have the right tools. One of the practical strengths of the NBRK0750 is the alert flexibility. You can set thresholds for temperature and humidity, choose whether you want an email, an SNMP trap, or a webhook call, and even create a hierarchy of alerts so a minor temperature rise triggers a warning, while a critical threshold triggers an emergency notification. This granularity prevents the alarm fatigue problem that plagues many monitoring systems where every little fluctuation drowns out the real emergencies. In addition, the unit includes 2 relay outputs that can be programmed to shut down a specific power strip or initiate a cooling fan if something goes wrong. That kind of automated response can keep a rack from spiraling into a fire hazard without any human intervention. On the flip side, there are hidden trade-offs that aren't obvious from the product page. The Netbotz monitor relies heavily on the APC cloud service for its remote interface, which means you need an internet connection that's always up. In a scenario where the internet goes down, you lose the ability to get alerts though the device still logs data locally. If you're in a location with spotty connectivity, you might need to run your own NMIS or SNMP server to pull the data, which adds a layer of complexity. Also, the sensor suite is fairly basic. You get 1 temperature probe and 1 humidity probe per unit. If you need to monitor multiple points in a single rack, say, 1 at the top and 1 at the bottom, you'll have to buy additional sensors that aren't included in the box, and that adds to the total cost. Another practical consideration is power consumption. The unit itself draws around 15 watts, which is negligible compared to the servers it monitors, but it does add to your overall rack power budget. In a tightly provisioned rack where every watt counts, you'll want to factor that in. The device also has a small LCD on the front.